My family chose my sister's feelings over my wedding. Imagine your family telling you to hide your happiness because it's making someone else feel bad. Then they skip your wedding when you refuse. That's what happened to me, and it changed everything. I'm going to tell you about the time my family decided I was the bad guy for being in a happy relationship. This all happened a couple of years back, and it's still wild to think about how things spiraled. I'm keeping this straightforward, just laying out what went down, because it's messy enough without extra fluff. So I'm the middle kid in a family of three siblings. There's my older brother Matt, who's always been the chill one, me, and my younger sister Lauren, who's, let's just say she's had a rough time with dating. Growing up, we were tight. Family dinners, holidays, random game nights. My parents were big on keeping us close. Lauren and I especially got along because we were only a couple of years apart. We'd share clothes, gossip about school, all that. But as we got older, things shifted. Lauren started getting into these intense, short-lived relationships that always ended in chaos. One guy ghosted her after a month, another cheated, another just wasn't serious. She'd call me crying, and I'd listen, try to cheer her up, tell her she deserved better. It was tough seeing her go through that, but I figured she'd find her person eventually. Meanwhile, I met Jake. We'd been friends for a while, but it turned into something more around the time I was 25. He's steady, kind, the kind of guy who shows up when he says he will. We clicked in a way I hadn't experienced before. It wasn't perfect, nobody's relationship is, but we were happy. We'd go on hikes, cook together, plan little weekend trips. I wasn't trying to rub it in anyone's face, but I wasn't hiding it either. I'd post a picture of us on a trail or share a story about some dumb joke he made. Normal stuff, right? My parents seemed happy for me at first. They'd invite Jake over for dinner, and he'd charm them with his bad puns and willingness to help with dishes. Matt liked him too, but Lauren? She started acting off. It wasn't obvious at first. She'd make little comments like how I was always busy with Jake or how I didn't have time for her anymore. I brushed it off because I was still there for her, texting, calling, meeting up when she needed to vent. But her dating life kept getting worse. She'd go on a few dates, get super invested, and then it'd crash and burn. Each time she'd spiral saying she'd never find someone. I tried to be supportive, but it was draining. I'd spend hours on the phone with her, trying to lift her spirits while she'd sometimes snap at me for not getting it. I didn't know what else to do. Then things took a turn. My mom pulled me aside one day after a family barbecue. Jake and I had been there, laughing, maybe holding hands a little. Nothing crazy, but Mom said Lauren was struggling because seeing us together made her feel worse about her own situation. Apparently, Lauren had been talking to Mom and Dad about how my happiness was highlighting her failures. I was floored. I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't trying to make anyone feel bad. I was just living my life. Mom suggested I tone it down around Lauren, maybe not bring Jake to family stuff for a while. I didn't love the idea, but I didn't want to hurt Lauren either. So I agreed to try. For the next few months, I was careful. I didn't bring Jake to smaller family hangouts, and I stopped posting as much about us online. I even checked in with Lauren more, trying to be there for her. But it didn't help. She'd still get upset if I mentioned anything about Jake, even in passing. Once I let slip that we were planning a trip and she went quiet, then changed the subject. I started feeling like I was walking on eggshells. Meanwhile, my parents kept hinting that I should keep my relationship separate from family time. It was weird. They'd always preached family unity, but now they were asking me to hide a huge part of my life. Things got worse at my cousin's birthday party. I went alone, like they'd asked. Lauren was there talking about her latest breakup. Everyone was comforting her, which was fine, but then my dad made a comment about how I was doing okay because I had Jake. It was meant to be light, but Lauren's face changed. She left the room, and later Mom told me Lauren felt like I was flaunting my relationship just by existing. I was confused. Jake wasn't even there. I started wondering if I was somehow the problem. Was I being insensitive? Should I be doing more to shield Lauren? But then I'd think, how is it fair that I have to dim my happiness because her dating life isn't working out? That's when I got the call that changed everything. My mom, voice all serious, said the family had talked and decided it'd be best if I didn't come to family events for a while. They thought it'd give Lauren space to heal. I asked if they were serious, and she said yes. They'd all agreed, even Matt, though he didn't say much. I felt like I'd been punched. My own family was choosing Lauren's feelings over me, like my happiness was some kind of weapon. I told Mom I wasn't going to pretend Jake didn't exist. She said I was being selfish, that I wasn't thinking about Lauren's mental health. I hung up, too angry to keep talking. Jake was there when I got off the phone, and I just sat there, trying to process how my family could push me out like that. That call was the start of a rift that only got wider. I kept waiting for them to reach out to say they'd overreacted, but weeks passed and nothing. I'd text Matt, but he'd just say things were complicated. Lauren didn't reach out at all. It hurt, but I wasn't going to beg to be included. Jake and I kept building our life, moving in together, planning our future, but the sting of being sidelined by my own family didn't go away. I didn't know it then, but things were about to get even harder when we started planning our wedding. After my family told me to stay away from events to spare Lauren's feelings, things got quiet between us. I was hurt, but I focused on my life with Jake. We'd moved in together and things were good. Great, even. We'd spend evenings cooking, watching shows, talking about our future. It felt like we were building something solid, and I wasn't going to let my family's decision ruin that. But the silence from them weighed on me. No calls, no texts, just nothing. I'd check in with Matt sometimes, hoping for some kind of update, but he'd give vague replies like, everyone's just figuring things out. Lauren didn't reach out at all, and my parents acted like I'd done something wrong by not agreeing to hide my relationship. It was frustrating, but I wasn't going to grovel for their approval. Then Jake proposed. It was simple, just us on a hike we loved. I said yes, obviously, and for a while I was over the moon. We started planning the wedding, small, outdoors, with close friends and family. Well, my family I assumed would still be part of it. I figured enough time had passed, maybe they'd cooled off. I wanted them there. They were my family, after all, and a wedding's a big deal. So I reached out, I called my mom first, told her about the engagement, and invited them to the wedding. I kept it light, hoping we could move past the drama. She was polite but distant, saying she'd talk to Dad and get back to me. I waited a week, no call. I texted Matt asking if he'd heard anything. He said Mom and Dad were still processing, and that Lauren was going through a lot. I didn't get it. What did Lauren's dating life have to do with my wedding? I tried again, this time sending a group email to my parents, Matt and Lauren. I laid it out, date, place, and how much it'd mean to have them there. I didn't mention the past, just kept it about the future. Matt replied saying he'd try to make it. My parents didn't respond. Lauren didn't either. I gave it another week, then called my dad. He picked up, and I could tell he was uncomfortable. He said they'd decided it wasn't a good time for them to attend. When I asked why, he said Lauren was in a fragile place, and seeing me get married would be too hard for her. I couldn't believe it. They were skipping my wedding because Lauren might feel bad? I asked if they were serious, and he just repeated that they were doing what was best for the family. I hung up, too stunned to argue. Jake saw how upset I was and suggested we focus on the people who wanted to be there. He was right, but it stung. I'd always imagined my family at my wedding. My mom helping me get ready, my dad walking me down the aisle, even Lauren joking around like we used to. Now, none of that was happening. I sent one last message to my parents saying I respected their choice but hoped they'd change their minds. I didn't hear back. Matt texted me a few days later saying he felt caught in the middle but would try to come. That gave me a little hope, but it didn't fix the ache of knowing my parents and Lauren were choosing to stay away. Planning the wedding kept me busy, but the family stuff lingered in the back of my mind. Jake's family stepped up big time. His mom helped with decorations. His brother offered to DJ, and they all made me feel like I belonged. It was bittersweet, grateful for them, but wishing my own family could act the same. As the wedding got closer, I kept checking my phone, hoping for a message from my parents or Lauren. Nothing came. Matt confirmed he'd be there, which was something, but he warned me he might not stay long because of family tension. I didn't push him for details. I was tired of begging for scraps of support. The wedding day arrived, and it was beautiful. The sun was out, the venue looked perfect, and Jake was grinning like an idiot when he saw me in my dress. Matt showed up like he promised and gave me a hug. He didn't say much, just that he was happy for me. I scanned the crowd during the ceremony, half expecting to see my parents or Lauren slip in at the last second. They didn't. The ceremony went on, we said our vows, and everyone cheered. It was joyful, but there was this quiet hurt I couldn't shake. My family wasn't there. They'd chosen Lauren's feelings over my biggest day. After the wedding, things didn't magically get better. Matt texted me a week later saying Mom and Dad felt bad but thought they'd made the right call. Lauren apparently had been a mess around the wedding date, and they'd been focused on her. I didn't respond. What was there to say? I was angry, but more than that, I was sad. I'd spent years trying to be a good sister, a good daughter, and it felt like none of it mattered. Jake and I settled into married life, and his family became my anchor. But I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd lost with my own. A few months later, I heard through a cousin that Lauren had started dating someone new. Apparently, she was doing better, and my parents were thrilled. Nobody mentioned my wedding or the fact that they'd all skipped it. It was like it never happened. I wondered if they'd ever reach out, or if this was just how things would be now. A family that decided I didn't fit because I refused to hide my happiness. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew I couldn't keep chasing people who didn't want me around. After the wedding, life with Jake was good. We were settling into our routine, figuring out what it meant to be married. We'd have quiet nights at home, go on weekend adventures, and start talking about bigger plans. Maybe a house, maybe kids someday. His family was great, always checking in, inviting us over. But my family? It was like they'd erased me. No calls, no texts, nothing since the wedding. Matt sent a couple of messages, mostly small talk, but even that felt forced. I'd hear bits and pieces about my parents and Lauren through cousins or family friends, and it was always the same. Lauren was the focus, and I was an afterthought. It hurt, but I was starting to accept that this was how things were. Then, about 6 months after the wedding, I got a call from my mom. I hadn't heard her voice in so long it caught me off guard. She sounded nervous, said she wanted to catch up. I was cautious but agreed to meet her for coffee. Jake told me to hear her out but not to expect too much. When I got there, Mom looked tired. She started with small talk, asking about my job, the apartment. I kept waiting for her to bring up the wedding or why they'd cut me out. Finally, she got to it. She said Lauren had been in a bad place for a long time, and they'd been trying to protect her. My relationship with Jake, she said, had been hard for Lauren to see because her own dating life was such a mess. They thought skipping my wedding was the best way to keep her stable. I sat there trying to process it. They'd chosen to miss one of the biggest days of my life because Lauren couldn't handle it. I asked why they couldn't just talk to me, work something out. She said they didn't want to burden me. It didn't make sense. Excluding me was supposed to be less of a burden. I told her how much it hurt, how I'd spent months wondering what I'd done wrong. She apologized, but it felt half-hearted, like she still thought they'd done the right thing. She mentioned Lauren was dating someone new now and things were looking up for her. She even suggested I reach out to Lauren, try to rebuild things. I wasn't ready for that. I left the coffee shop feeling more confused than before. Part of me wanted to fix things, but another part was done chasing people who'd pushed me away. A few weeks later, I got an invite to a family barbecue. It was from my dad, sent to the whole family like nothing had happened. I stared at the email, wondering if they expected me to just show up and act normal. Jake said it was my call, but he'd support me either way. I decided to go, mostly to see if things could change. When I got there, Matt gave me a quick hug, but Lauren barely looked at me. My parents acted overly cheerful, like they were trying to gloss over everything. Nobody mentioned the wedding or the months of silence. It was weird, like we were all pretending. I brought Jake because I wasn't going to hide him anymore. Lauren's new boyfriend was there too, and she seemed happy, laughing with him. I was glad for her, but it didn't erase what had happened. Halfway through the barbecue, my mom pulled me aside again. She said she hoped we could move forward, and that Lauren was in a better place now. I asked if they'd ever considered how their choices affected me. She got quiet, then said they were just trying to keep the family together. I told her it didn't feel like that when they skipped my wedding. She didn't have much to say after that. I left the barbecue early, telling Jake I needed time to think. He said he'd noticed how tense things were and didn't blame me for being upset. Over the next few months, I kept some distance. My parents would invite me to things, but I only went to a couple. Lauren never reached out, and I didn't either. Matt tried to stay neutral, but he admitted our parents were still focused on keeping Lauren happy. I started setting boundaries, saying no to events if I didn't feel up to it. Jake and I leaned on his family and our friends, who became our real support system. I still loved my family, but I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I realized I'd spent so long trying to be the good sister and daughter that I'd let them walk all over me. Looking back, I learned a lot. I wasn't wrong for being happy with Jake, and I shouldn't have to hide that to make someone else feel better. My family's choices were about them, not me. I don't know if things will ever be like they were when we were kids, but I'm okay with that. Jake and I are building our life, and I'm focusing on the people who show up for us. My family might come around someday, or they might not. Either way, I'm not waiting for their approval anymore.